Swords can come in different shapes and forms, and while some people think that they're a bit overused, can we help it? Swords are just so cool, aren't they? And badass too. How many badass sword wielders can you name? How many of them are protagonists of their own shows? That's what we'll be talking about this time. Here are the top 10 most badass swordsman MCs in anime. But before we begin, I noticed that not a lot of you viewers are actually subscribed to my channel. If you've been here for quite some time and liked a lot of the videos that I post, I'd like to encourage you to hit that subscribe button. It doesn't take much, and I really appreciate the help that you'll be giving this channel. Now let's begin. At number 10, we open up with none other than Asta. Being Asta is suffering. In universe, he just can't get a break with that rough start he had in the first chapters of Black Clover. Out of universe, well, the guy is unfortunately remembered more for his hilariously conspicuous shouting when the anime first began. It overshadowed most of what the character has been able to do since then. And trust me, there's a lot of them. Asta has shown an astounding amount of growth in the series proper, as expected out of a shonen protagonist who's pretty much a modernized take on Naruto in a magic world. You could have dropped Black Clover early on, but come back at around the 100th episode or so, and you'll suddenly be bamboozled. Whoa, Asta is so cool now. Asta is such a badass who can do all those moves now. Hell yeah. Character development in play, and that's what makes him one of the most badass swordsman main characters in anime. Someone known as the son of the devil himself should already be a candidate for the next badass sword-wielding protagonist on the list. Now with that in mind, Rin more than lives up to his billing. How can he not be when you take a look at what he's capable of? Let's see them. Blue flames inherited from none other than the strongest demon ever, none other than his father. High-speed regeneration and a heart that just doesn't yield. Finally, a powerful sword that allows him to harness his blue flames in never-before-seen ways. Yep, sounds just about right for a badass anime protagonist repertoire, and he just keeps getting stronger, both physically and mentally. It's a badass protagonist like this who would have the guts to go hunting down his father himself. Their fated confrontation is one to look out for, and I'm sure that such a tough cookie like Rin wouldn't allow himself to just bend over and lose. The shonen heroes just keep coming. Stepping up for our next entry is Ichigo Kurosaki. When you got a local ghost menace in town and prefer someone more human than the son of the devil, I think Ichigo's the right guy to call. He's long wanted to be your everyday guy just chilling and keeping his friends safe. Unfortunately, when you get some amazing ghost detection powers like he does, such a thing is nigh impossible. When life's got you in something like that, it is time to step up, isn't it? And step up he did. From the moment he got his powers from Rukia, he's done nothing but strive to become stronger in order to protect all he holds dear. That includes trainings from hell, outright suicidal invasions of another realm, and taking in all the punishment that comes with the tough battles that he's had to go through. Despite not really proactive as a character, it's just amazing how far Ichigo can endure when life's challenges come barreling his way. Truly a badass wielder of the sword. For a change of pace from shonen protagonists, we have the super vampire slayer D in our next spot. Traveling across the lands in search of vampires to hunt, D is an enigma. Handsome, dark, mysterious, and having godlike prowess, D's the personification of noble vampires' worst nightmares. A lot of it has to do with his background, being a product of a human and a sacred ancestor. Little's known about D's past, but given his outlook and his aura, one can tell that he's seen a lot, enough to make him the hardened and tough hunter that he is. Oh, and there's also the thing about him being able to become even stronger by accessing his vampire powers. It doesn't matter what kind of being gets put in front of him, noble vampires, aliens, elder gods, the list goes on. Basically nothing can slow him down or prove to be too hard of a challenge for him. He's no invincible hero, but challenges rarely keep him down. Once he gets you in his sights, he will cut you down. That's just how determined and badass D is. A rogue samurai takes the next spot on the list with Mugen. Given his upbringing, it's really going to be surprising if Mugen wouldn't be on this list. The vulgar and aggressive samurai brings a completely different dynamic to the main trio in Samurai Champloo, and I think that in terms of being a straight-up badass, he's got everybody in the story beat. Growing up in such a rough childhood does that to you. The young Mugen had to resort to crime just to get by, and a life where danger lurked at every corner has sharpened him to be the tough bastard that he is in the story proper. The strongest gems are forged from fire, and a life of anarchy has done more than enough for Mugen. Sure, it puts him at odds with a lot of people, but that's just what a good anti-hero is, isn't it? He has a lot of astounding feats and fights in the Samurai Champloo proper, and I think those are more proof of how big of a badass he really is. Plus, who else can fight so well yet so recklessly, all while showing off some dance moves? Why don't we keep rolling with the wandering samurai archetype now with Hyakkimaru. If you think that Mugen had a tough childhood and a tough past, you haven't seen anything yet. How about losing practically your entire body to some demonic pact out of your control and having to slowly become whole by fighting demons scattered across the land? While Mugen had to contend with ruffians and fellow criminals, Hyakkimaru had to deal with problems of the supernatural variant. It's his story that makes Dororo a very exciting watch that I'd highly recommend. It doesn't follow the traditional weak to strong formula that we've come to see from anime often, but it's such a thrill to see the twists and turns in Hyakkimaru's quest to become whole once again. You need no further proof of Hyakkimaru's badassness than his showcases of creativity and power in defeating demons and slowly getting his parts back. Just imagine how tough those first few fights are. Let's make it 3 in a row now for samurai characters, shall we? Coming up next is Afro Samurai. Just how badass is Afro Samurai? Don't mind the fact that he's the second strongest in the world for a second. Being second strongest in the world is no easy feat, but holding on to the titles against fellow samurai, a copycat android, and all sorts of assassins at that, it's just straight up bonkers. But of course, number 2 just isn't the end point for someone like Afro Samurai. How can it be when the previous holder of the title of number 1 was his father, and he had to endure seeing his father killed in a battle for the title? Thus, Afro continues to forge forward. Even with all the strength of the world at his side, he pushes on and keeps honing his skills because he must seek revenge. No matter what blood-soaked road awaits him, Afro will stop at nothing to exact revenge and take back the title of number 1 that rightfully belongs to his family. A list of badass swordsman main characters wouldn't be complete without Kenshin. Anyone who grew up in the 90s would no doubt be familiar with the quiet samurai wearing an X on his cheek. Kenshin's probably one of the more iconic characters of that era. Not as much as guys like Goku, but he's up there, and for good reason too. Starting off as the cold-blooded killer, Kenshin's story is one of redemption. It's a completely enchanting journey as he goes from one of the most notorious killers to finding the warmth of love and friendship on his road to erasing the person that he was in the past. Even in his kindness, his skill with the sword hasn't dwindled, as you can see in the many big battles he got in the series. Kenshin as Batosai is a badass, a true demon on the battlefield who has no peer, but I personally think that the reformed Kenshin is even more badass. There's just something so cool with how composed he is and how he sticks by his conviction to never kill anyone. It takes serious restraint and some insane psychological control, because as we all know, the toughest battles are the ones fought within us. The runner-up this time is Gintoki. Don't let that cheeky and impish grin fool you. Even the sweet tooth and the constant laziness can catch anyone off guard. But what we're dealing with here is one of the toughest sword wielder main characters in anime that there is. Yes, this troll of a main character can just as easily shift gears and amaze with some of the most amazing feats for an anime main character. Just try to count the number of times he saved someone by arriving in the nick of time. How about the times he showed off his swordsmanship? Skills that you wouldn't expect out of a clown like him. You can even look at some of the gritty slugfests that he found himself in, like the battles against Takasugi. That's not even getting to Gintoki's tragic backstories and burned bridges. He'd lost everything, and he had a lot of blood on his hands, things that he distanced himself from, even temporarily. The man had long been looking for a purpose in life, and as they say, the biggest smilers are in fact the ones who are the most hurt. Ironically, that makes him quite a similar character to Kenshin, just with a lot more mischief and comedic elements. Our number 1 badass swordsman main character is none other than Guts. Guts. If there's a character who's the epitome of sheer toughness, grittiness, and plain old violence, I think that Guts is a prime candidate for that. His backstory alone is one thing, but you're talking about a man who's grown up completely surrounded by bloodshed. Berserk as a series surely doesn't hold back on the gore and the violence, and you have this one person hardened by such an environment to not just survive in it, but thrive in it. In the anime world, Guts is truly the embodiment of brutality, and he's still getting stronger as time progresses. Throughout the whole saga of Berserk, rarely do you see him not being able to just power and brute force his way through the problems, and that kind of edginess really helped to make the series such a cultural phenomenon in its heyday. Now, if only we could get a better Berserk adaptation than the one we just had. You know, the one that became a meme fountain due to the CG? In terms of sheer badassness, I doubt that anyone would come close to Berserk's Guts, and he's the undisputed number 1 character on this list. That's my list of top 10 badass swordsman protagonists in anime. How does your list look? I'd love to know your list, so please share your thoughts on the comment section below. I think that with a topic like this, we'll have a lot of interesting character choices coming out, and I'm sure that a lot of you would rank even my list differently. As always, I'd encourage you to subscribe before leaving, and if you enjoyed the content, you can share the list to your friends to get them in line with some awesome anime content. I'll have more lists coming your way, so we'll be seeing each other next time. See ya!